We always start with our education vision. This is the DESE vision, and we're going to move right into our agenda for today. So today's agenda is going to look familiar, looks pretty familiar from last meeting and the meeting before. We're going to start with some special education updates. I'm going to provide you with some updates on our general supervision work, and then we're going to end with some updates on the new IEP. So last month we had talked about some special ed leadership changes, and I have a few more changes to announce this afternoon. So I'm going to start first. I want to invite Deborah Hand, who many of you know has worked with us for many years. She's been at the department for 14 years and has been in education for 33 years. And she is just wants to say a few words as she is going to be leaving us and moving on to retirement. So congratulations, Deb.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jamie. And I do want to publicly thank you for all your support through the years. It's just been wonderful. And being able to have our escape project get off the ground was pretty awesome. I won't take long. I know how busy these are. So I just wanted to publicly thank all of you that I got the opportunity to work with, all the support that I've had throughout the years. It's truly a pleasure. And when people say it's an honor to work in this job, it really is. We work for the students, but we have so many layers, and I know that the special ed directors and all the leadership that are here have so much on their plate and so much to do, and you just do an awesome job. So thank you again, and thank you for the time, Jamie, to let me say that publicly.
Thank you, Deb, for your service, and thank you for being here today. Congratulations on your retirement. And we have one more announcement. It's that time of year for retirement. So Barry, if you could come on camera as well. I want to congratulate Barry as well, who's going to be retiring in 2 weeks after 30 years of service as well.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jamie. I just want to, everything that Deb just said, it has been a real privilege and an honor. It's also been a lot of fun, a lot of learning going on, always interesting. Appreciate all the interactions I've had with everyone in the agency and outside over all this time. Really appreciate it. And I will miss everyone, but I'm leaving anyway. So thank you.
Thank you, Barry. And at our next meeting in August, hopefully we'll have some information for you on the changes as far as Barry's position as well. Moving into our agenda, Martha, we're going to look at our special ed updates. Many of you may have received a survey yesterday, and I just want to explain what this survey is and who needs to complete the survey. So we're in the 3rd year of the resolution funds, and many of you know you've been doing this the last 3 years, that the resolution funds are funds that have been allocated based on a agreement with USCD to address some inequities as far as the private schools and homeschool students. So we sent a survey out to approximately 200 districts yesterday that have been allocated resolution funds in this last year, so FY 24. We did receive a lot of bounce backs, so I'm going to ask Julie to drop the survey in the chat. The only districts that need to complete the survey are districts that actually received allocations for FY 24. So if you had resolution funds this year, we're asking you to complete this survey. We would like this information back a week from today. We're trying to tie up all the loose ends to make sure that your funds are spent, and that if they are not spent, that we're working with you to make sure that we have a plan in place. If you are applying for your 240 and 262 applications and we don't have the information that we need on the resolution funds, we are going to ask you for information, and it could include how you're going to expend the funds, if you still have funds to expend, or if you're unable to expend the funds, we are going to be asking for information, including written affirmations. So I just want to flag this for you for 2 things, to kind of know what's coming. If you have unspent funds and you're applying for your 240 and 262 funds, and also if you did not receive the survey, I want to make sure that you receive the survey link. And only districts that have received resolution funds for FY 24 need to complete the survey. Moving on, Martha, thank you. So this is just kind of a little bit of what's coming next year. So we've talked a lot about the assistance work that districts that are identified as needing intervention or needing assistance will be receiving. You probably have received some correspondence already from SPED Strategies, which is the organization that we've contracted with to provide the technical assistance to districts that are identified as needing intervention or needing assistance. Next year, there's some dates that I just want you to kind of hold the dates for your calendars. There'll be additional information that's going to be coming to you, but what can you expect next year? If you're a district that's been identified as needing intervention or needing assistance, there's two different things that you can expect. The first thing is there's going to be some in-person convenings. So there's going to be a 2-day convening in the fall and a 1-day convening in the winter. Those convenings will include activities that will help you with data analysis, root cause analysis, and development and implementation plan. The second part of the year, the winter convening will also include looking at high leverage practices that align with your improvement plan. The second thing that you will be receiving information on is virtual consults. And so districts that are needing intervention or needing assistance will be receiving information on individual virtual consultations with SPED strategies. So that information is forthcoming. These dates are just like hold the date so that you know that this should be on your calendar for next year. Bonnie, anything that I missed on that you wanted to add?
Nope, that's it. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you. So this next slide is also just informational. Many of you that have been around for a long time probably remember that the superintendent's checklist has had very little on it as far as special education. And I just want to flag for you so that you know what your superintendent will be seeing this year. There is a lot more special education related activities or tasks on the superintendent's checklist. So the notice of procedural safeguards has always been on this list, so that's not a change. You will notice that the conditions of assistance is on there, and I believe it was on there last year as well, so that's not a change, but that every year in June, it needs to be updated, it needs to be submitted so that you are able to approve your application for 240 and 262 grant funding. In the fall, I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that that is when everybody will be receiving their notifications for significant disproportionality. All districts receive a notification whether you're at risk or identified or not at all. And that will occur in the fall. This is a change, so this is on the list, but this is also a change from what we've shared with you in the past. This last year, the determinations that you just received this last winter, we're changing the timeline for the determinations. Many of you have talked to us and have communicated that you receive the determinations later in the year and you want to have enough time to plan for your grant funding, particularly if you're a district that needs to set aside your 2% for M cubed. And sometimes things don't align as far as when you receive the determinations and when you're getting the technical assistance. So moving forward, so for this next year, districts that will be participating in the technical assistance with SPED strategies, that the list of dates that I shared earlier, those are the districts that have been identified, were just identified as needing assistance or needing intervention. We will not be sending out new determinations until next year in March. The plan will be that next year, if you are identified this year, so you received a notice this year that you are needing assistance or needing an intervention, you'll have the entire year next year to work on with the vendor on your technical assistance and your improvement planning. You'll receive a new determination in March, and at that time, we'll give you instructions on what that means. But then the next year, you will receive a whole year of technical assistance aligned to your determination. And I'm just going to stop for a minute to see, Bonnie, if there's anything that I should clarify on that. I know that's a little bit of a change with our timeline.
No, Jamie, I think that's good. We'll have it coming back up again a little bit. If we have some questions, I'll let you know.
Very good. Next piece here, this is the same information we provided last month about the requirements for reporting to us the total number of students served and found eligible for CCIS and CEIS. So this is just also going to be on the superintendent's checklist, so they'll be aware of that data collection as well. And this data collection is not new, but you'll see a date. So this year went for the child count for homeschooled and parentally placed students. We sent out the application to report your child count over the last 2 months. The year before, it was late spring. You'll be receiving that link for that application in October. So that will be happening in the fall. So when you do your count will be as of October 1st, and then you'll be receiving the application. It'll be open for a period of time, and you'll be reporting your count at the same time they're actually conducting your count. And then that information will be held here at the department and utilized for your application for your 240 and 262 funds for the following year. So this is not a new collection, but the date is different. We will not be doing it in late spring like we have been doing it. It'll be done in the fall. And I'll provide these dates again in the late summer or in early fall when we have our meetings as well. These next two data collections, this is just indicator 14 and indicator 7. This is not new timelines. This isn't anything, it isn't a change. We actually talked about this last month, but I just want you to be aware that this is also on the superintendent's checklist as well. Thank you, Martha. Last summer, we sent out a checklist, I think in July. So we've updated the checklist, and Julie's going to drop it in the chat. We're hoping this is going to help you with just things that are coming up over the next couple weeks, months for your planning. So most of this I went over last month, so I'm not going to go over it all again. But I just want to go over a couple things from the checklist, and then I'm going to go over a couple things that relate to the IDA applications for 240 and 262 funding. So the first thing is just a reminder that the federal government requires that we continue to process PRS complaints in accordance with timelines. So it's just a reminder for you to have a plan in place on how you're going to address PRS responses or any student records requests if it's needed. The second bullet, I'm going to kind of come back to that after because I have a separate slide to talk about 240 and 262 funds. So I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. On this list, we also have the tentative dates for the special ed leaders meetings, which I shared last month with you. This next bullet about MCDHH educational interpreter registration. This is new. This was not on the checklist last year. This is just a reminder that any staff that provides educational interpreting for any students who are deaf and hard of hearing must be registered through the Department of MCDHH. So this is the registration, the link that gives you the information of how to do that. But it is a requirement that all interpreters must be registered, and that includes anyone that's providing these services in a collaborative setting or an improved special education school. More information can be found at the link, so I recommend that you take a look at the link if you're not, if you don't have that information. The next two bullets are not new. I've talked about this before, so I'm just going to talk about them quickly. We talked about data collection last month for indicator 14 and indicator 7. You'll see on the checklist, it has specific information on exactly what you need to do, where you can find some resources. So there's a lot of information on that checklist regarding those two indicators. And then the last two pieces really talk about communication. Just a reminder that we need to make sure that directory administration stays updated. There's a lot of staff changes that happen over the summer, and we pull your email addresses from directory administration. So when we send out bulletins, we send out invitations to these meetings. Any of our correspondence comes from that directory of administration, and we can't change it on our end. It's something that's changed at each LEA level. So please make sure that that's updated, and there's just some information on that as well. And then just a reminder of how to subscribe to our newsletters and updates as well. This next slide, I talked a lot last month about what you need to do to be prepared for your 240 and 262 applications, how to submit them. And we expect that the GEMS applications will be released around July 1st, so it's coming soon. So I just have a couple things I wanted to add that was not part of our list from last month. Last month, I talked about the conditions of assistance. I talked about GEPA. This information is also on the checklist. I talked about MOE compliance and the requirements also on the checklist. The requirements for CEIS and making money matters for districts that are identified as NI, needing intervention. I have two other things for equitable services that I just want to bring to your attention so that you can plan. The first one is we've had a lot of districts that have submitted child counts to us. And because there's a delay sometimes that things have changed, And we want to make sure that the child count is capturing the child count at a given time. So moving forward, it's going to be as of October 1st, what is the child count for parentally placed and homeschool students? And we're going to open the collection at the same time. So it's much more timely for you, and hopefully that will help you with improving data quality. But if we receive any inquiries from districts asking for changes in their child count, we will be asking for a written explanation of the changes and asking for information that could include IDA count, child count policies and procedures. So we really want to make sure that we have good procedures in place so we're getting timely and reliable data, and we may be asking for information on that. So I just want to flag that for you. The second piece is LEAs that have, and I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier when I shared with you the survey for the resolution funds, but I just want to flag for you that if you have unexpended FY24 resolution funds and you're applying for your grant funding, and we don't have the information that we need to make sure that the funds are going to be expended, we may be asking you for additional information. As I said earlier, that could include a plan for expending the funds, or it could include other documentation such as written affirmations. You do not need to upload them like you did in the past, but we may be asking for them. Okay, I'm going to transition a little bit into some updates on general supervision. And you know that this is the 8 components. We show this slide, I think, at every meeting. And this slide we've been using, I think, all year long. Russell had this slide, and this is our updates and our initiatives for the 2023-2024 year. So since this is our last meeting in June for the 2023-2024 school year, I want to provide you a little bit of an update of where we are. So on this slide, you'll see 3 square rectangles, the conditions for assistance, the public school monitoring procedures, and the PRS procedures. Those are completed, they're posted, and I think everybody is aware that we have had that those documents have been updated. So those are pretty much done at this point. I will say that all of our procedures and our conditions are always a work in progress, that they could be updated if things do come up that require us to make additions or clarify things, and we'll keep you updated on that. But at this point, those documents are completed. I do want to talk about the remaining items on this list. So we're going to move to the next slide. So some of the things on that list are going to carry into next year. So the OASIS procedures, you know, we've talked about them. We had released them for public comment, and we anticipate that they'll be posted somewhere over the summer. We will send out notification through a bulletin when that does occur, so that you'll know that that's posted and where to find those procedures. In addition, we understand from our colleagues from the BSEA that the dispute resolution and mediation procedures are also close to being released. We expect that sometime over the summer as well. If we receive notification, which I expect that we will also include that in one of our bulletins, so you know that that also has been updated where it's posted, and then you can access those procedures as well. The LEA determinations, I talked a little bit about that already, but I want to talk about it again. So as you know, over the last couple of years, we really have worked on creating a rubric that captures the data points that we're utilizing to make the determinations. We're going to continue working on that. We received a lot of feedback, but we will not be issuing determinations again until March. So the March determinations next year will be for the 2024-2025 school year, and the technical assistance will carry all the way into the following year. So we're going to continue working on that, and that kind of ties into this last bullet on the technical assistance. This year we had a very short window of time with the technical assistance providers. Provided a webinar and some office hours and some other technical assistance, but it was very brief. Next year, districts that are identified as needing intervention or needing assistance will be engaged with the technical assistance throughout the entire school year. So you already know who you are. They'll be reaching out to you, and I would expect that you will be receiving some more information, including the dates that I shared earlier in the coming weeks. Things that are somewhat new, but not so new because we've been talking about them for the 2024-2025 school year. I've mentioned this several times, but I just want to mention this again. And we'll talk more about this in August or September when you return to school. We will be implementing some fiscal monitoring next year. So we will have fiscal monitoring procedures that we'll be sharing with you. We'll be sharing with you the criteria. So you will know what we'll be looking for. We're going to start very small, and it will also it will complement your cycle of monitoring with public school monitoring. So the same cycle, if you're getting monitored next year, you will also receive some monitoring on the fiscal side as well. And there's more information that we'll provide you on that. But I just want to flag this again, that this will be happening next year. We've been working on data protocols all year, and we've talked a lot about that. But most of the data protocols that we've been working on have been mostly at the state level. They have not really been data protocols that really have, some of them, they all impact all of you as LEAs, but they are not necessarily your data submissions. Next year, what you're going to be seeing is the data protocols that we're working on are more related to how you provide us data, and how we ensure that the data that you provide us is timely and reliable. So you're going to be hearing a lot of this from us. We're going to be working with you. And I had mentioned earlier the child count for parentally placed and homeschool students. That's one example of how we want to make sure that we have protocols and procedures in place that help you report valid and reliable data to us. There'll be more information coming on that. But next year, the data work that we'll be doing will be more directly related to all of you as LEAs, and not just us at the state level. And then the last thing is policies and procedures. I've mentioned this many times over this year. We continue to work on this. We will be producing a policy and procedure manual for you. We'll be sharing that with you in the coming months, in the next school year. We expect it's going to be a work in progress. We expect it will be something that we will add to over time. But we're looking at providing you some additional information and some clarity on policies and procedures from us. And I'm just going to stop to see if any of my colleagues, because I went over a lot of things on our general supervision work, and just see if any of my colleagues have anything that they do want to add, or anything I missed that as far as our updates for next year, or what we've done up to this point. All right, it looks like we're good to go. I'm going to transition into talking about some documents for the new IEP. And today we have 5 new documents that we're going to share with you. This is a list of what we're going to be talking about today, and I'm just going to talk about this briefly, and then I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about each one of these. First of all, we have several quick reference guides that we're going to be that we have released. So these are on our website right now. Julie's also putting them in the chat. So you'll see them in the chat. So there's 3 quick reference guides: supporting English learners with disabilities with the new IEP, information for parents with the new IEP, and transition planning with the new IEP. Those are 3 quick reference guides. And when I say quick reference guides, they're quick reference guides. They're meant to give an overview. We've received a lot of feedback that schools and districts and others are interested in more in-depth information on some of these topics. And so that's something that we're considering as far as professional development. But these documents are meant to be more of a quick overview on these topics. The last 2 things that I have on the list, and I'm going to talk about them in more detail in just a moment. This last piece is called is discussion questions, and it's called Getting Ready for My Yearly IEP. At times, I think people have referred to it as the student questionnaire. That's a document that's meant to help you engage in conversations with students at a transition age, and really prepare them for their own IEP meeting. So I'll talk about that in just a minute as well. And the last document is a sample high school IEP. So this sample high school IEP is going to replace the high school IEP that is on that was on the website. It's no longer there. We've also removed the preschool IEP. I just want to be transparent about that. This document has been updated. It has really strong transition planning in it. I'm going to talk about it in just a minute. But we really feel like this is a really good sample. So we have replaced the other 2 with this document. So I'm going to start with the first document. So this first document is supporting English learners with disabilities with the new IEP. And again, this is an area that I know we've received a lot of feedback on, that districts, families, advocacy organizations, community members have expressed a lot of interest in hearing more from the department in more depth on this topic. This particular document is meant to be a quick reference guide. The way this document is laid out is it actually takes the 5 focus areas of the IEP. And if you remember from many of the different presentations that you've seen on the new IEP, we focused on 5 areas. We focused on increasing family and student voice, improving outcomes and access for students with disabilities, really emphasizing least restrictive environment, improving coordinated transition planning, and improving the accessibility of language. Those were like our 5 focus areas of the IEP. This particular document takes those 5 areas and it creates an opportunity to look at the IEP for students that are English learners with disabilities, and as it relates to those 5 areas. So it includes strategies for educators and resources. So it's broken up into those 5 sections, aligned to those 5 focus areas, and includes strategies and resources. Again, this is an area I'll talk a little bit about professional development at the end. And we anticipate this is an area that we're going to hear more from all of you, that you're looking for more support and resources, including professional development. So that is something that we'll be talking about in the future. The second document here, and again, I know we're releasing a lot of documents today. So this one is what parents need to know about the new IEP. Again, it's meant to be a quick reference guide. It also starts with looking at the focus areas, but it really, this document breaks things up into how to prepare for the meeting, how to collaborate with school professionals, and how to use the form like during the meeting, and how to partner with school professionals throughout the year to make sure that the IEP actually is put into action. It's not just a document. You'll notice in this document, there's tables that have sections that talk about what to do before the meeting, during the meeting, and after. And it's meant to help provide resources and strategies throughout the IEP process. You'll notice that there's sections that focus on student participation. The new IEP and specifically talks about data. And then it also talks about transition planning. And then again, participation in the general education and the life of school, which gets back to that LRA piece. So again, a quick reference guide. We're hoping that this is going to be helpful to your families. And this information is available now as well. This third document is transition planning with the new IEP. We received a lot of feedback that this was an area that people felt that the technical guide didn't have enough information in it. So this really goes into transition planning. And it also aligns to those areas of focus. You'll notice that throughout the document. And it starts off with talking about what is coordinated transition planning. And then these 5 strategies align with the 5 focus areas that I mentioned. So it starts with the first strategy, start with the end in mind, moving through looking at how to regularly gather data, looking at transition planning being an ongoing process, looking at the present levels and the goal sections with a focus on both academic and functional skills, and then finally collaboration with community-based partners. So again, it embeds those strategies, connects those strategies to those focus areas, and it provides not just strategies, but resources for each of these areas. You also will notice, and I think it's on each one of these slides, we also reference the parts of the IEP technical guide that this information also relates to. So this next document is not a quick reference guide. This document, we heard a lot from all of you that with this particular new IEP, there's a lot of embedded transition planning where we really think is important. But we got a lot of questions on what does it look like to involve the student in the IEP process? How do you look at that visioning piece in the beginning? And this particular document is really about helping students prepare for the IEP meeting and how to be really active participants in their own educational process. So you'll notice that it starts by talking about self-determination, focusing on strengths, challenges, and some other helpful strategies. It talks about that student vision piece that I mentioned and how to think about post-secondary goals. And then finally, it talks about planning for the role, like what does a student's role look like in an IEP meeting? And what are some different ways that it can look like? Because it might look different for different students based on the student's needs or what the student's preferences are. So just some recommendations that also go along with this. I just want to go over it. This document is not required. We do recommend it, but it is not a required document. We recommend that you use this at least annually to help prepare for the IEP meeting. I think it will help you get some of the information that you need from students, in particular to be able to complete the IEP and have the right information for the IEP process. We also think that it's important that you need to work with students to determine which questions are appropriate. This is a collection of questions. It's meant to help generate ideas, but not every single question is going to be appropriate for every single student. So not every single question necessarily needs to be answered either. Students may need support in responding in their own words or even figuring out how to answer some of the questions. Students are also given options on how they would like to participate in the meeting. This is what I've mentioned before. They could write an outline. They can read a statement. Maybe they want to read their vision or what their vision is for themselves or their goals. I've seen students where they've had PowerPoint presentations. In some cases, they may even be leading their own IEP team meeting. So there's lots of different ways. This document gives some different ideas that might help you coordinate with students and other staff in your school to figure out what does the students' involvement in the IEP process, what does it look like or what could it look like? And then finally, students are asked if they would like any help preparing for the meeting or what would be helpful to prepare for the meeting. So again, helping students with strategies of how to be prepared to actively participate in their own educational process and IEP team meeting. So we hope this is a helpful document. We got a lot of feedback from all of you that this is something that you were hoping that we could help with some of these questions. So we're hoping this is going to be a document that's going to be useful. And you may want to modify this based on your own district needs. And then the last document, so this is the fifth one, the high school sample IEP. I just want to go over a couple of things, and there's something that's a little bit different on this IEP than the other two that we had previously had posted. Just a reminder that this sample is a sample. It provides examples of what the new IEP might look like in practice. The purpose of the sample is really to help you as educators or parents or other stakeholders envision what the new IEP might look like when it's completed, like what certain sections might look like. Samples are not exemplars. We want to be really clear on that. This is meant to be a tool for you or for others, but not necessarily, it's not an exemplar. They're not intended to represent the best or only approach to developing an IEP or certain supports or services. It's again meant to help as a tool. And we just want to remind you that each IEP must be developed based on the needs of the individual student in accordance with all federal and state requirements. What is different about this sample IEP is you're going to notice a purple section. So on this IEP, there's some purple annotations. And this information is really about providing you with some reflection information that gives a little bit more context and explains like why certain sections are written the way they are. It's meant to add additional information as far as giving context and providing some clarity about why certain information is in a certain section. Also, you'll notice that some of the information can be put in multiple places in the IEP. So the purple information is also highlights that and reminds you that it's not necessary to repeat information, but information could go in multiple places. And so this purple information kind of highlights where things could be in multiple places on the IEP. So this purple section, and you'll see that in several parts of the sample IEP, is new. And it's information that's really written for the reader to help provide some additional context, additional explanations on the information that's on the sample IEP. Okay, so that was the 5 documents, and I just want to mention that all 5 of these documents, today we didn't go over them in any detail. I just gave you an overview and we're releasing them today. But as we start looking at professional learning support for next year, we will make sure that professional learning support goes into all of these documents in more detail like we have with other things in the past. This information on this slide, the areas of need identified through the February survey, this is not new. I've shared this before. I just want to remind you that this is the information that we have received as from all of you as to what areas you're hoping that we're going to provide some support next year. So in the process of procuring those services, finalizing what things will look like for next year, we'll provide that information to you as soon as we have it. But what I can tell you is there will be regional support. There will be opportunities for remote, for in-person, and some blended learning formats. These topics are the things that we're focusing on for the most part, because this is what we've heard from you, are areas that you all feel would be helpful for us to support you as you continue to roll out the new IEP next year. I just added this slide in because I just wanted to make sure that I'm clear that there isn't anything that's changed since our last meeting on the new IEP forms. We have not added anything new. I think I have mentioned this before, we will be updating the progress report. That will not be happening until next year. So we're expecting that schools districts will use the current progress report until it is replaced. But as of now, these are the forms that have been updated. We still are working on others. We'll keep you updated on if anything is updated or anything changes. But nothing has changed since the last time we met. So I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that as well. And I think, Vonnie, I think that is it. It was a lot of information. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So just, we have one, and the document you talked about, Jamie, for families, when you start talking about the new IEP, is that available in other languages?
Yeah, it's not right now, but that's a great question. I will, and my team is present on this at this webinar. So they're going to remind me when we have our check-in meeting that we need to make sure that that's translated and posted. So great reminder. Thank you. It is not at this time though.
Okay, great. Thanks for letting us know. The other question is, do vendors know that all of the additional docs are being updated?
The forms, the 12 forms, I believe they do, because that has not changed. Most of these documents were updated, the forms were updated in January or earlier. So I believe they do. I don't have any more information. I don't have, I don't talk to vendors regularly, so I don't know. We have talked internally about providing some updates to the vendors. We've had 2 meetings with vendors. It's been optional. Obviously, we don't procure services from your vendors, so we don't have that type of relationship, but we have offered opportunities for the vendors to meet with us and answer some questions. So again, I'll add that kind of to my list of things to kind of follow up on. It might be a good thing for us to at least be able to give them an update, particularly on the date that I shared with all of you about the transition over to the new IEP as of Thanksgiving next year. So it's a good question.